Hello, I'm Medzamor Panossian, and I'm the managing editor at EVN Report. And we've been restarting our podcast series, EVN Talks. And today, our guest at EVN Report is Dr. Hagop Panossian. He is the founder and the president of ARPA Institute. Welcome to EVN Report, Dr. Panossian.
Thank you, Rubina. Thank you.
You know, I've always known about ARPA Institute. I didn't know much about it. And because you were going to come today, I was doing my, homework. And ARPA is an abbreviation of Analysis, Research, and Planning for Armenia.
Correct.
And this was established in 1992.
Yes.
It's an institution that's as old as Armenian independence almost.
Yes.
Almost. And at the time, it's Research, Analysis, and Planning for Armenia. It's almost like an approach that we hardly see today. Research and analysis, and then journalists, we're often complaining about lack of data when we want to do research. There isn't even the population, that there was at some point we didn't know what exactly the population of Armenia was. So research data was that important. Yet in 1992, this was the basis of an organization you started. Tell us a little bit about that too, because that seems not renovating churches, not painting walls. It seemed data because we need to know how to move forward.
Exactly, yes. Actually, I have started with the formation or establishment of another organization before in 1983. It's called Armenian Engineers and Scientists of America, which is still working, but it was only composed of engineers and scientists, but there was no activity related to research, analysis, or planning. So that's when after independence, I thought Armenia will need a think tank-like organization where you have to do research, you have to do analysis, and you have to plan for the future. And so I talked with experts from different fields, political scientists, economists, and so on. And we formed a group of 15 people, and we established ARPA Institute because then we thought that Armenia will need a lot of research, a lot of analysis, and a lot of planning for the future. So that's how the idea started. And the first activity that we actually worked on was organizing the energy conference in Armenia, where the Medzamor atomic plant was then, of course, shut down. The decision was made that it should be restarted in order Armenia to be able to survive. So that was our first activity.
That was the beginning of decades of work, and I'm really having a hard time. How would you describe the organization? It's not a philanthropic organization. It's a think tank. How would you describe it? Because having seen all of the projects or read about all of the projects that you do, it's neither here nor there. Is there a definition for the institutes that would place it within more of the classical forms of institutions or organizations that work closely in education, science, healthcare, with the government, with the population, and yet it's scientifically based and it's not philanthropists who come into money. It's scientists behind it.
Yes. Well, the only difference between other think tanks, for example, and our think tank is that we try to work in all areas that Armenia needs work in, and I mean depending on our experts, of course. Our experts do analysis, survey the what's available in Armenia, and they determine what would be a good thing to work on. And so then we plan for it, and we develop a project and start working on it. That has been our method of working in the past, and it continues to be the same. We develop a program, a project, for example, and do it for a few years and present it to the government. And if they want to adopt it, and they will adopt it. Sometimes they have, sometimes they haven't. But we still continue doing the way we are doing always.
Well, the first conference around energy and the Medzamor project is a very obvious need that Armenia had at a time. And yet it's something that you're still working towards with the nuclear physics program and with the polytechnics and the situation now with Medzamor nearing its end date and with new modular nuclear power plants being considered. It's something that is still an ongoing project, we can say, but it's also an example of where the need was very specifically identifiable.
Yeah.
My question is, with the other projects, how do you identify the need? Because sometimes that's one of our problems in general as a society, because with all the goodwill, with all the knowledge, finding the right place to start, which could yield results, is sometimes the bigger hurdle
Sure.
than the process itself. We've had this problem issue. We've asked several organizations, even government agencies, how can we help, for example, and they've said either anything will do,
Yeah.
everything is okay,
Mm-hmm.
or nothing, thank you. So it's not a good starting point.
Yeah.
How do you identify the need?
Well, I can give you examples of what we've done in the past. For example, we built the first modern blood bank in the Yerepuni Hospital in the 1990s, 98 or 99. And the reason we started that is because the war was just a few years before that, and there were a lot of soldiers that were wounded, and they were not being taken care of very well. So we did the analysis and thought that is a very good thing to start with. So we developed the first modern blood bank. We trained the director. We brought him to Los Angeles blood banks, and they spent there about a couple of months. They came back, and then they started working on modern blood banking. And the second, for example, is, again, we analyzed the situation. We saw that, we established that there are too many smokers, and therefore there's something that must be done about trying to stop that smoking or reduce it. So we developed the educational program to 7th and 8th graders, and we taught it about 6 years in 61 schools in Armenia. And then we presented it to the government, and the government adopted it, and they are supposed to now teach, health education and lifestyle to the students. I mean, all our projects are based on that kind of things. Again, to encourage innovation, for example, what we did is we established innovation or invention program for young scientists. We call it, what is it?
Well, that's a program I wanted to ask you about, because that's an old program.
Mm-hmm.
That's been around for about 20 years, if
Yes.
not longer.
Yes.
And I was just like bits of information that I acquired recently. It went from the first place winning at $2,000 to $10,000 this year. Any inventions that have actually made it to the wider markets, have made an impact, that's of course, innovation is an exercise, and you have to train in innovation. I understand the program also just teaches that and encourages that. But
invention competition is for young scientists or graduate students, for example, and we receive inventions from all kinds of subjects. We send it to our experts, and they evaluate it, and that's how we decide the best, and we award the best. For a couple of years now, we are only selecting one single good one, and we're trying to follow up on it so that it becomes a product, if possible. For example, we have had at least one success where an algorithm was developed in biotechnology, and that algorithm will analyze they call it the telomerase, the end of the DNA, which is not being analyzed very well, and they think there's not much information, but this algorithm goes in and studies and analyzes the telomerase, and then it projects, sicknesses and things like that. And it's now commonly used by many biotechnologists in the world. So we have had a few successes of that kind, yes. But of course, not all the inventions become a product, which is not very easy to do. Even hardware kind of products takes years and years before it becomes a product. But we tried our best to help the students or the scientists, to proceed with their research.
we were, before this interview, speaking about a new initiative that's kind of also very exciting and very today, an AI-based algorithm that the Institute is working on. Could you tell us a little bit more?
Yes.
And why do we need a new AI system where there's another one popping up every couple of days, and eventually they even out? Some of them do something slightly better, and there's almost one for every kind of need.
Yeah. Well, we're aware, especially after the war, about the disinformation against Armenia and all kinds of fake news by different countries, specifically Azerbaijan and Russia. And we thought there is a need for, detecting disinformation and make it public so the public will not be disinformed, essentially. And so we found this young scientists who were just new graduates, PhD graduates, in Ohio State University. And they were working on such an algorithm. So we approached them and we said, can you make it available if we pay all the development costs and then provide it to the government so the government can use it? And they said, sure. And so we worked with them and we paid their all the expenses, and the algorithm has been developed now. It is meant to detect disinformation by gathering the information from all over the world, all the internet, the resources, videos, TV stations, whatever is available online, whatever is public, can gather that information, and within a couple of minutes gives you all the information or the disinformation that you need. And it has even the capability of detecting whether a source is a dependable source or not. And even it can make projections as to what do these information mean in terms of the future. What is a possible outcome of these? If, for example, it is related to war, it will tell you that there is a possibility of attack of, let's say, 85% possibility or 95%, depending on the information.
It's equipped with the capacity to also kind of analyze and project.
Exactly. It goes back to the already past events, and then based on those events, what outcome has happened already, and now uses that information to predict what can happen in the future.
It's also it's interesting because I hadn't made this connection so far, but I was also looking at the Yerevan State University 90th anniversary address that you had given back in 2011, I believe. Mm-hmm. And you said something there about memory, saying that the future is not just only about the power of memory, but the power of comprehension. And this sentence, does it somehow tie to the algorithm that's being developed? Because something that is very interesting to me is that our memories are short or they're very selective. And for a healthy society, we need a healthy memory. Mm-hmm. And what is something that we haven't been able to build up on ourselves because we weren't informed in time, we weren't following closely enough. Our memories are full of holes and information is lacking.
And disinformation as well.
And disinformation is also kind of taking up a lot of space where it should have been given to actual information. Is this AI algorithm in kind of like coming up to substitute for the memory that we're missing and also the information that we're missing?
Well, it can be used. I mean, that's one of the purposes of developing it, because disinformation sometimes could lead the whole public astray. I mean, they could believe in it, and then things can happen that is not predicted.
Yeah, but disinformation is also kind of information that also takes up as much space and is as informative to the person receiving it as factual information. So as such, they don't act very differently. Mm-hmm. And if we're blind to the facts or we're blind to certain kind of information, that means we're also not comprehending that this information is a different kind of information than facts. So how do we, because as a media organization, we deal with this a lot. We report, others report. We are ethical, it's factuals, other are just propaganda. And somehow we're equated a lot of the time for the impact we have, because we inform, they disinform, we inform as much as they disinform. So how do you make the distinction available and impactful for the user or for society in whole?
For the public,
you can detect disinformation from here to the moon and back, but if the person that's fallen victim to it doesn't want to see it, doesn't see it.
Exactly. Yeah.
How do we?
And so that's one of the reasons that this algorithm can be very useful to journalists or journalistic organizations, because the journalist organizations will inform the public with the right information so that the public knows what is right and therefore can differentiate between that and fake news. And so that is also very important, because to inform the public is very important for a country, for a government, and even for all the organizations that exist in a country. So this tool, we believe, that will be very useful for EVN Report and many other organizations. So, that's one of the purposes that we have developed it.
Is this an algorithm basically that comes from a very Hayra Nasser, I'm going to say, because the word patriotic or nationalistic doesn't cut it here, Hayra Nasser place? Or is it also applicable? You see a wider application for it for other nations in similar situation and generally?
Yeah, as any tool, you can use it or you can misuse it, right? So if you use it for the right purposes, it is very useful. But the algorithm itself is made such that it can be used in any area or in any category. It can be used for business purposes, it can be used for legal purposes, it can be used for any area that needs information to develop their future plans or to develop activities.
An interesting side to what ARPA Institute is doing are the panel discussions, because everything else is so scientific, technical, also kind of different kind of initiative, and yet almost to balance it out, you do more panel discussions than we do as a media organization. You initiate more discussion. Why?
To educate the public. That's the summary of it. We think that the public needs to know what is right and what is wrong and what is true and what is false. Not only about, regular information, but also about Armenia and the Armenians in general. So that's why our panel discussions or presentations, it has to be related to either Armenia or Armenians in general. It could be anything about history, political science, anything that is,
most
related.
Recently wine.
Right, wine, why not? Because that's an important product now for Armenia and the public needs to know. And so now we have upcoming panel discussion about identity, how Armenian identity has progressed and changed during the years, which is also a very important topic, because our younger generation feels Armenian differently from what we used to be feeling. For us, being Armenian was different from what the younger, for example, my children feel differently about being an Armenian. So how does that affect our future is very important to think about, and therefore accordingly needs to be planned correctly so that the futuristic, nation or the younger generation can benefit from it.
And you also, during that address in the 90th anniversary, you said we need to plan for the future and act on it, or else we will be left behind.
Definitely.
Do you still have that sense of urgency that we might be left behind, or we have made some kind of progress where we appear or can safely believe that we're part of the progress and as such will not be left behind? Because to some extent we've learned to speak with the world a little bit more. To some extent we've learned to be part of the global community a little more. We've learned to, the diaspora has learned to speak Armenia. Armenia has learned to speak diaspora a little bit more. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we definitely are behind. And now we're realizing it, fortunately. And we're making progress in that area as much as possible. But then, you see, it's a whole mentality. It's a mindset that needs to progress. It's not only what you know, but how do you project that, what you know, to the world? How does the world see you as a country, for example, or as a nation? And that takes a new form of mentality, a new form of thinking. And we have to adapt to the new mentality of the world and follow up what is going on. Otherwise, we'll remain behind all the time. Because as you know, the world is progressing so fast that it's very hard to catch up. So if we don't do our homework and if we don't work hard as a country, as a nation, and help each other, we will not be able to catch up.
But also at the same time, Armenia has been an amazing place for transformation for me, because I was born here. I've been coming every summer for most of my childhood. I've been living here since 1999, and I've not seen this much change anywhere else. I've seen a regression in Lebanon. I've seen how communities can deteriorate, how systems can never be formed. But what I've seen in Armenia, compare Yerevan in 1999 to Yerevan today, these are complete different contexts, different countries, almost different cities, different societies, different outlooks. And I find this fascinating, is this much change in 30 years under the threat of war, during war, under attack, and yet to be able to progress. I do sometimes very cautiously, optimistically think that we're able to catch up, because we have caught up a lot in a very short period of time if you kind of look behind far enough.
Sure.
But also, do we overestimate ourselves? Because there's, especially in the scientific sense, we're like, oh, the Soviet legacy of science and what we had in technology that's helping us with jump forward now. Is that really truly a link there? And also, are we overestimating where we're coming from?
Sometimes we are, but we have a young generation that is very promising. And I believe that organizations like the ARPA Institute have had some contribution in shaping the mentality and progression of this younger generation, because we've been preaching innovation and progress and hard work and dependability and professionalism and all these things for the past so many years, for 33 years already.
Almost relentlessly, because also I have to bring this up. The DNA scanner, you brought it.
That's
they
right.
didn't want it.
The first scanner,
you had to convince for it to be here.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's always the case in our case, because there's always resistance for new things, new approaches. But then you have to explain and make them understand what is the benefit for the organization or for the institute or for the person, and then they will see it, because I mean, they're intelligent people. I can say that the level of intelligence and scientific understanding in Armenia is pretty high, especially within the higher educated people, even though they are somehow confined because of their old bringing up. But they do see the light when you talk to them, and they do understand the importance, and therefore they adopt it. So that's another case that we've done, the first DNA scanner, and it has been used until recently. Now they have a modern scanner, so they're making progress. And actually, one of the projects, one of the areas where we are seeing a lot of progress is biotechnology and bioengineering and biology. And the other one is, of course, the software engineering, where, as you know, we have also established a new center of circuit design in the Polytechnic University, so that we can teach internationally recognized software to the students, and so they can be future employees of large companies like NVIDIA, AMD, and other
part of the
companies.
Global community.
Exactly, yeah. So because that's coming. I mean, we are going, as you know, they're going to establish a $500 million AI-based center in Armenia by NVIDIA, and so they will need a lot of engineers.
And it's not just water and electricity, also manpower and intelligence there to keep it going. And
of course.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you.
And looking forward to reading about or learning about new initiatives from ARPA Institute. And thank you again.
Thank you very much.